I just picked up my dream camera. The words dream camera will likely put a camera in your mind. For some, it might be the Contax G1. Others might lust for the half-frame perfection of the Pen F. Point-and-shoot lovers might think about a beauty like the Leica Minilux, or maybe even something fancy like a Hasselblad. But for me, there was only one dream camera, the Leica M7. I have been looking for this camera for the last couple of months, so I'm really happy that I finally found one. Hello and welcome everybody to a new episode on my channel. Today I'll be talking about how I bought my dream Leica camera. I still don't really believe it's real. I bought this beautiful Leica M7 2 weeks ago. I talked about it in my last video where I was reviewing my Leica M2, which I will be now selling. So let's take a closer look at the camera together. Isn't she just absolutely beautiful? The structure of the video will be as following. It's gonna be a kind of first impressions video. So I'll be talking about why I wanted to buy this particular camera, the M7, why not an M6, MP, MA. I'll be going into that. And then this is not just any M7. This is an M7 that has a 0.58 magnification viewfinder. So I'll be talking a little bit about that as well, because that was actually the reason why I wanted to upgrade from my M2. So I'll be talking about how I've liked this camera so far. Has it been kind of meeting my expectations? And also I'll be comparing it to my Leica M6. So if you're looking for an M6 or an M7 and you're kind of in between, this will be a good guide for you to know the differences. I'll be sharing some photographs that I made over the last 2 weeks, because ever since I got this camera, I have exclusively used this camera, which is kind of special for me because I like to shoot with a lot of different cameras. But I thought, I got my hands on my dream camera, so might as well just take advantage of that. Lastly, I also want to talk a little bit about the things that I don't like so much about the camera. It is actually only one thing at the moment that I have noticed that kind of annoys me. So let's get started. So let me talk a little bit about why I chose the M7. It comes down to one main fact, which is that this camera has aperture priority. So if you're not too familiar with what that means, it's basically the fact that you just choose the aperture and the camera chooses the shutter speed for you. So this is the only Leica film camera that allows you to do that. And it is pretty nice because in my photography, I most of the time only choose my aperture because I want to decide how much of the image I want to have in focus. I'm not really too particular about my shutter speeds. As long as I'm able to shoot from my hand, I'm fine with that. So the fact that this camera has an aperture priority mode makes photographing so much easier. My second main camera is actually this beauty right here, the Contax G1. And on this camera I've really learned to appreciate and love the aperture priority mode. I only use it in that mode. So if you're interested in the Contax G1, I have actually uploaded a long-term review of this camera a month ago. So go check that out on my channel. Having a Leica with that possibility is super nice. So as you can see here on the top plate, you have the slow shutter speeds. And then you have this one, which is called auto. That's how you engage the aperture priority mode. So now we're inside of the viewfinder where you can see how the different shutter speeds are being displayed when you're in aperture priority mode. Secondly, why I chose the M7. It's not so much to do with the M7. It has more to do with the fact that it's able to have a 0.58 magnification in the viewfinder. For somebody who's wearing glasses like me, using an M6 and my M2, it was okay to use for 35mm, but 28 was a problem already. So I thought that the smaller magnification on the viewfinder would really allow me to use wide angle lenses much better. And this is actually the case. So if I'm looking through this camera right here, I have a 35mm lens attached to it. I can not only see the frame lines very well, but I can also see what is on the outside of the frame lines. So that means that when I'm actually out in the field doing photography, I can decide while I am shooting, I can decide if I want to include something in my picture or not. So if I'm looking through the viewfinder of my M6, for example, all I can see is the outside of the frame lines. So I can not see anything that's kind of outside of the frame lines. I can just see what's inside of the frame lines with the 35mm lens. So here, when I'm looking through the viewfinder, I can actually see the outside area, what's around the frame lines. So that allows me in the field to decide if I want to incorporate something into my picture or into my composition or leave it out. Otherwise, with my M6, I would have to take the camera away from my eye, look at the scene one more time, and this just allows me to do everything while I'm in the viewfinder. So let's look at the viewfinder of my M6 with the 35mm lens attached. The right frame line is not so easy to see because of the window at the moment, but you get a general gist of what's going on. Here we have the M7 with the 35mm lens attached to it. When I attach the 28mm lens on this M7 or I do the 28mm display, this is pretty much what a 35mm lens feels like on a 0.72 magnification Leica. So I can see it very well, but I can't really see outside of the frame lines unless I'm really moving my eye kind of in the viewfinder, like moving around a little bit. But on my M6 I was barely able to see the frame lines at all, so this is already a big upgrade. Now let's have a look at my M6 with the 28mm attached. So it's already very difficult to kind of film this. But yeah, I think you should see it decently. And now let's take one more look at the M7 with the 28mm attached to it. The 0.58 magnification on the viewfinder would have also been possible on the M6 TTL, the MA and the MP, but since I really wanted the aperture priority mode, I decided to go with the M7. I was waiting for around 6 months and I finally found an M7 with the viewfinder magnification for a decent price. One more thing that I really like about the M7 that I was wishing for with my M6 and my M2 is the fact that this camera has an on and off switch. Here you can see the on and off switch. So now the camera is turned on, now the camera is turned off. So once you turn that switch, not only is there no more electricity going around inside of the camera, so the battery is going to be fine, but also you can't activate the shutter button. So when you're putting your Leica in your bag, you're traveling somewhere, it's happened to me at least many times, I accidentally tripped the shutter button because I'm one of those people who like fires a shot and then automatically whines. So I'm super happy about the fact that you can switch this camera off. Every now and then I switch it off. I want to take a shot and I forgot that I switched it off, so that kind of sucks. But I think once you get used to it, it's a really nice feature. One more thing that I really like about the M7 is the fact that when you use the aperture priority mode, the camera is going to decide the shutter speeds for you. Obviously, that's something we already talked about, but also it does not only use full stops, but it uses in-between stops as well. That means, for example, now, let's say I'm looking through the viewfinder, I'm focusing, now it tells me it's 1/12 of a second. 1/8 of a second, 1/6 of a second. Out here it's 1/360th of a second, for example. So that means it's not only 1/250th and 1/500th of a second, but it has in between values that it uses as well. Plus, one more thing that's really nice is the fact that in the aperture priority mode, the shutter speed goes down to 32 seconds. So if you're somebody who likes to do night photography or photography on a tripod, this is really, really nice as well. The last point that I enjoy about this camera is the fact that this camera has an AE lock function. So that means that you're able to lock your exposure and then recompose, take the picture and use the value that you locked in. That sounds a little bit theoretical. Let's make it a little bit more practical. So what you can do is you look at your subject, you take a light meter reading, and all you do is you press the shutter button, you press it down a little stronger, and there's a little LED inside of the viewfinder that's gonna light up, and that tells you you've now locked in your exposure. And no matter where you move with your camera afterwards, once that exposure has been locked in, it only shows that exposure value and it's going to use that value. So for me, again, coming back to my Contax G1, I've used that feature a bunch because I'm very selective with my light metering. So I was very, very happy to find out while I was reading the manual that this beautiful M7 has this feature as well. So I'll show you quickly how the AE lock function works. So let's look through the viewfinder right here, and now it suggests 1/360th of a second. Let's say I want to expose for my desk, so that would be 1/45th of a second, 1/50th of a second. So now I'm pressing the shutter button a little bit, and now you saw that second red dot come up. And now even when I'm moving around, my exposure value is going to be locked. If I depress it, it goes back to the values. As I said, if you want to meter for a specific area where it's a little bit darker, you can lock that exposure in on the camera and then readjust your composition afterwards. Lastly, something that I'm not a huge fan of, that I have discovered by losing a couple of frames, is the fact that this camera, when you have it on aperture priority, it needs some time to like ramp up when it's deactivated and you want to take a shot. First, in the display, it shows you the ISO that it's selected, and secondly, afterwards, you can take a shot. So it takes around, I would say, 2 to 3 seconds for you to be able to make a photograph once you're in aperture priority mode. So I'll just very quickly show you how long it takes when you activate the camera. So I'll activate it once I'm looking through the viewfinder, how long it's going to take until I'm able to take a picture. So I'm activating it right now. 1, 2, there we go. Now I could take a picture. So as long as the ISO is blinking, you're not able to take a picture. So if you're somebody who's really into like fast-paced street photography, then you should probably just select the exposure values like you normally would on any other Leica camera or any other camera, and just use it like that. Apart from that, I'm gonna come a little bit closer. I can have one more look at my beautiful Leica M7. The writing on the M7 has been blacked out, and it did have a black like Leica dot as well, but I was not a big fan of that, so I just put tiny sticker on top of it. If I was to compare this Leica to my M6, the first thing that I have realized is the fact that the M7 is much heavier than the M6. I mean, on the scale it's not that much, but it feels much heavier than my M6. So that was something that I noticed right away. The viewfinder is pretty much the same. It's beautiful, it's bright, it's clear, just what you want to have on such a high quality piece of equipment. So there's no complaints on that. Everything I already spoke about, I'll just repeat really quickly. So the M7 has an aperture priority mode, M6 doesn't have that. The M7 has an AE lock function, M6 doesn't have that. The M7 has an on and off button, which the M6 doesn't have. The M7 has DX code reading, which I don't like to use, but the M6 does not have that either. And it also has exposure compensation, which the M6 doesn't have but the M7 only works with batteries unless you use 1/125th and 1/60th of a second. These are fully mechanical on here, so even if the batteries die, you can still use your camera. These two shutter speeds, as you can see, they are marked with this little sign. They are the fully mechanical shutter speeds. But apart from that, you need batteries to fire the shutter and also to use the flash. The M6 is fully mechanical except the light meter, but here you need batteries to operate the camera. One thing that I wanted to add in terms of the viewfinder, what I really like about the viewfinder here is that when you use a 35mm lens, the other frame lines, so there's the outer frame lines and then there's the ones in the middle right next to the focusing patch, these are gone on this model. So when you have a 0.58 magnification, that takes away, I think it's the 135mm frame lines. This means that when you look through the viewfinder here, it's a super clear picture. You only see the frame lines and the focusing patch. That's a beautiful experience to have with this Leica. Just so uncluttered and so clean. So I really, really like that. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time, for your interest in the Leica M7. I'm very happy that I found it for a decent price and that I was even able to haggle the guy down a little bit. The problem with my Leica M7 is that it has some fog and even a little bit of fungus in the viewfinder. So I might just have to get it cleaned at some point, but at the moment I'm still in the honeymoon phase with this camera. I love using it. It's so easy to make pictures with this camera, especially having it in aperture priority mode. And yeah, it just makes it that 10-15% easier and faster to use. So I really, really enjoy that. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I'm happy for each and every one who wants to come along for the journey, for my videos. I'm very, very grateful for everybody who's already watching. So enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. If you have any questions, any comments, leave them down in the comments section below. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. Enjoy yourself, go out, shoot some film, be nice to other people. That's the most important thing. Be nice to animals as well, because they have feelings. So yeah, take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye bye.